Our first reader is James Yeh. His writing appears in Fence, Tin House, Vice, PEN America, and elsewhere. He's a co-editor of Gigantic. He is the recipient of fellowships from the MacDowell Colony, Columbia University, and the Center for Fiction, where he was a 2011 New York City Emerging Writers Fellow. This is his second appearance in Noon. James.
I just want to thank Diane and for everything she does with this tremendous publication. And thank all of you for being here in the Center for Fiction. So this story is called Who Is So Dumb? But it's not all like that. Here's a moment while I am at my parents' house. We're at dinner. My father has done something unusual. It makes my mother frown and shake her head. I continue looking at her, but she refuses to tell me what it is. What, I ask? My father continues chewing while my mother continues shaking her head. I don't want to say, she says. What is it, I ask. What did he do? She shakes her head again while my father looks off to the side. From the direction of their glances, I can tell whatever had happened near his plate. Did he spit something out onto the table, I ask? It wouldn't have been for the first time. Did he eat from the serving spoon? Finally, my mother tells me what happened. As he was spooning gravy from the bowl to his plate, a mushroom had fallen off of his spoon and onto the table. My father had picked up the fallen mushroom with his fingers and plucked it back in the bowl. So dumb, says my father, chewing. And he called me dumb, says my mother. So dumb, says my father. Jem, what do you think? A person choose the dumbest person in the world to marry cannot be very smart. Don't you agree? So dumb, says my father. Birds of a feather, says my mother, picking up her fork and then putting it down without eating from it. She tells me about choosing company who are like us, alternating between English and Mandarin, then pauses excitedly. Oh, Jem, she says, here's what I wanted to tell you. Shut up, clean up, yells my father, getting up with his now empty plate. But he yells this in a way that is not actually angry, but mock angry, which over the years I've learned to tell the difference from angry, which he is more usually, and which I know my mother is left to deal with alone now that I'm gone. My father goes into the kitchen to put his plate in the sink and run some water over it. I don't want you to marry a dumb girl, says my mother, picking up her fork again. A dumb girl will have dumb children and make your life miserable. That is the truth. So dumb, says my father from the kitchen. I took logic lessons, says my mother. In university, a person who chooses the dumbest person to marry cannot be smart, she repeats. And he quit. He never say it anymore. Mommy, tell the truth. So dumb, says my father. You think your mommy is so easy to be picked on? She asked in Mandarin. Do you understand? Mommy not so easy to be picked on, she says, switching back to English. He always say, Mommy's so dumb. Well, a person married the dumbest can't be very smart. She looks up, smiling. Don't you agree? You're funny tonight, I say. So dumb, says my father, clearing his throat as he leaves the kitchen. Hey, smart person, did you eat your medicine tonight? Asks my mother. So dumb, says my father, ignoring her. He goes into the family room where the enormous flat-screen television he bought last winter is hung, covering the entire wall. Your mother is no fool, says my mother. So dumb, I can hear my father say, sighing as he sits down on the couch. A little later, my mother comes up to my room, knocking quietly. Come in, I say. I'm in my bed reading. You really think your mother is funny, she asks. Sometimes, I say. In her hand, I see she's holding my jacket, which I had forgotten in the kitchen. She starts putting it on a hanger in my closet. I know I'm not dumb, she says, but he has to keep saying, you are so dumb. Who is so dumb? If I'm really so dumb, I'm positive he wouldn't marry me. Who is going to marry the dumbest person? I have to say to him, if I am so dumb, you cannot be too smart either. I can hear her laughing a little to herself, the small, pleased laugh of someone who doesn't usually win at things. I'm not looking at her, but I know she's first looking at my jacket in the closet and then at me. I hear the sound of her quietly walking out of my room and into the rest of the house. Thank you.
Not so dumb. Our next reader is Noy Holland. Collections of her short fiction and novellas include Swim for the Little One First, out this year from FC2, What Begins with Bird, and The Spectacle of the Body. She was a recipient of a Massachusetts Cultural Council Award for Artistic Merit and a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship. She has taught for many years in the MFA program for poets and writers at the University of Massachusetts, as well as at Phillips Andover and the University of Florida. She serves on the board of directors at FC2. And she's going to read her contribution to this year's Noon and a contribution from a few years back. I can't recall exactly which edition.
So my contribution to this edition of Noon is very short, but it has a long title. I sent it to Diane, and it was about 3 pages long, and she says, I'll take it if I can make it this big. And there aren't very many people to whom you say yes when they say that, so great admiration and thanks. This is called World Line of a Moving Observer. Try to walk on your hands down the sand street thinking you have swallowed yourself. Your skirt hangs across your face. Your mouth is showing. Your lip has been stitched to your cheek. She will be easy to find when you reach her. Reach here. Her lip has been stitched to her cheek. Her skirt is a mess, likely dancing, holding her hair in her teeth. A good place to dance is anywhere. A good place to fuck is the tide line. A good place to eat is Sadie's. When you reach here, my sweet, you will see. And this little story is called Two Dot. And when I sent it to Diane, she said, I've been there. I'll take it. Two Dot's the tiniest town in Montana. They have one dance a year, and everybody comes, and it has to be fun. I didn't go. I had a spot of luck and felt lucky. I stuffed my covers with ramen, 14 for a buck. That was lucky. I had a job I liked beside the rodeo grounds. I liked the bar between me and whoever. I liked the regulars. A bull rider came in regular and left me great wads of 20s. The old skinnies came in, little birds, to sing, among them Edith. Some people make you feel lucky. I bragged. I have a bird dog who sleeps through the night all night, a skylight in all 3 rooms, 3 rooms. All the lonely little feelings of the planet are mine. Not a care in the world, said Edith. Nobody gets off. This wasn't news to me, not so easy. I had it coming. I tied jingle bells to my boots in the woods to spook away the moose, the bear. I stalked up, pinched salt over my shoulder. Should I leave my 3 rooms, I left my lights on. I hooked my radio up to a timer. I was there all right. I would be back soon. I worked nights regular, the sun sloping down. I biked with the sun on my back. I rode the wrong way with my hair loose, with my hair in my mouth and eyes. I rode fast. I saw it coming. I saw the guy never look, not a glimpse, gunning out. Here it was. I was cooked. I had a foot in the clamp. We slept together, my tiny force against his. My bike folded neat, a wheel kinked and collapsed, teeth of wire, a snag, a scrap of my skirt flew among them. You pick up where you go. I picked glass from my neck. Black nubs of gravel buckled my rump, a negative sky with stars. I stood up and kissed him, the man who never looked. I was grateful and overcome. He took it nicely. I'd have a clear patch now, accordingly a bargain. I could walk. I walked. The road ran up to Eureka, up to the sorry scraped away slopes of the great blue-felled Canuck timber. They were waiting, my shriveled, tender flock. Late again, my boss said. Late again, boss. He raised an eye at me. I tossed an olive at his teeth. Stick it, I said. I got my rag out. Not again, he asked. You swear it? I tossed another. I took a swipe at the bar and poured. Schnapps, schnapps, pass it along, creme de menthe, little dove, drambuie. I pulled a red beer for a rancher, dumped his cigarette butts in the bin. For this, he offered to break my arm. I'd have a night of it. Pretty bull riding days, the sweet bulby asses of cowpokes ahead, the bar between us. He couldn't touch me. Try to touch me, I said. My boss was watching. I pulled the beer first, next juice. I sloped the glass. The trick is, do it slow enough. The juice runs in a grubby tongue. Slow, I thought, summer. The coiled hose, the spigot on. The hose flumpy and hot in my hand. It's half a mile away. The first little glub and sputter. Hey, here it's coming, kid. What a feeling. The old jiggle and dip. The hose wags up fat and happy, howdy, running hot and clean. The juice pools of its fresh and clouds. His did not. His was making pulpy globlets. His globlets were rising lacy and curdled up to the yellow wash. He threw it at me, our rancher. You can't smell it. You taste it and it tastes like can. He offered to break my other arm. He kicked a mother beaver in the parking lot, going out, going home, back to the ranch. There goes a man. The ladies liked him. He never looked twice. He thought he didn't have to. They liked his high, thick, wavy head of soap opera chestnut hair, his truck with heat, his acres. He was safety. The ladies fell for him from age, the poor twits, a dull, dwindling desperation. Nobody looked at them. They'd disappeared. I'd be disappearing too. I swiped at myself with my rag. I was wet. I tasted of can. My skirt clung to my rump. So what? Pretty bull riding days. I poured some more. I was in the clear, the big it girl, deep in the great I am. My girls tottered and twittered and drank. They were drunk. They were tired and weak and widowed. They went for creeps dead and living, the dead for their easy to love. They had stuffed their cupboards with ramen like mine, tomato soup in cans. They kept coins, bills, figuring. Edith kept hers in the deep freeze, sorted and stacked in an ice cream box. Frozen assets. She'd be cleared out. She spun on her stool and bragged. I watched my bull rider try to work her. Easy. He was young yet. He could ride the worst bull to the buzzer and walk. He wasn't marked yet. I told Edith about my radio time, my lights I left on. She said, oh, I am 86 years old as of now. Every one of these teeth is mine own. Her teeth were green from all she'd been drinking. Her lips stuck to her teeth. She looked ridiculous. Her lips flushed the blue of her hair, misdyed. Her face was violet, satiny as a banner. She was at suck, looked like. Her jaw was popping. She was draining. He heeled back on his stool, our bull rider. He looked away to let Edith fall. She fell hard to the floor and twitched there, riding the bits and spatter of her busted glass. He looked away, too late, too much, some tough. Our bull rider went down too. He passed out half upon her. He took on the loose beauty of the fallen. His skin was polished, at rest perfected, his eyelashes heavy as a cow's. I knelt to kiss him. The others worked at Edith. It would be for me to revive him, mine to coddle him home. She got her tongue down, a soft little gob of something cut loose and pushed to the slots of her brain. Do something, somebody said. I took a swipe at myself. It wasn't me. She was cooked. Poor, she had it coming. My skirt stuck to my rump. He wore a buckle I liked. It was big enough to eat from. I said, Edith, it wasn't me. Some days are better than others. Some people make you feel lucky. Edith was one of these. Thank you.
Thank you, Noy. You came a long way, I'm glad. Our next reader is Deb Olin Unferth. She is the author of the memoir Revolution, which was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award, the novel Vacation, and the story collection Minor Robberies. Her work has appeared in Harper's, McSweeney's, The New York Times, and elsewhere. Thank you.
Wow, a lot of people here. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. We all feel, we all as Noon people love Diane so much, and we sit around and talk about all the stories of ours that she's cut down from 6 pages to 1 page, or all the stories that she's rejected, and we love her so much for it. She keeps us really honest. And this is an example of a story that she, I think it was about 2 pages long, and she cut it down to about 3/4 of a page. So, and it's much better for it. So thank you, Diane. I think you're not supposed to be doing that. The little girl runs ahead of me into the bathroom, strips off all of her clothes, and sits naked on the toilet holding her new electronic toy. She takes videos of me, ordering me to be serious. Then she starts to take videos of her vagina. I say, I think you're not supposed to be doing that. I was witness to this when the mother gave the child the device. The mother said specifically, the one thing you may not do is take pictures of your private parts, because there is nothing wrong with your private parts, but they are private and not for sharing. I find the child's mother. I say, I think I should say, she's taking pictures of her vagina and sending them all over the world, maybe. But I'm not sure if I should use the word vagina in front of her mother's other child. Keeping this one vagina private is a serious matter, and it's true her part should never be used for sharing. Thank you.
Our next reader is Lincoln Michel, whose fiction and essays have appeared in Tin House, The Believer, the Paris Review Daily, Oxford American, Bomb Magazine, and elsewhere. He is co-founder and co-editor of Gigantic, a magazine of prose and art. This is his 3rd appearance in Noon.
Yeah, thanks so much everyone for coming out. Well, it is crowded in here. You know, whenever I talk about Noon, I always say with complete accuracy that Noon is the only magazine that I read from start to finish every issue, which is, of course, a testament to Diane's amazing editorial vision. Yes, and I should have a glass of water up here because my story's a little long, but all I have is the end of this wine, so I might sip this wine. Okay, this is called If It Were Anyone Else. A bald man buddied up to me in the elevator, but he was no buddy of mine. He was much older than me, yet more or less exactly as tall, not counting my hair. He was holding a brown paper bag over his crotch. Does this go all the way to the roof? I made a big show of putting my newspaper down and turning my head. What the hell do I know about the roof? Why would I go all the way up there? We stood still as we moved up the building. Just a friendly question. He licked the bottom of his mustache with the tip of his tongue. Hey, do you like candy beans? There was no one else in the elevator, then the doors opened and a woman in a green pantsuit stepped in. She looked at us and moved to the other corner. Who doesn't? I was angry. The man opened up his bag and dug around. He offered me an assortment on his palm. I took 3 of the red and 4 of the purple ones. I got out 2/3 of the way up. The building I worked in was very tall, more or less exactly as tall as the tallest building in that part of the city, not counting the antenna. I often forgot how tall the building was because I kept the office blinds half closed. If I opened them, I would get unnerved by the eye-level workers looking back at me from the building across the street. My company occupied 4 floors of the building, but they weren't consecutive. Between the lowest floor we owned and the 3rd highest floor we owned, there was a snack company. I've been working at my company for some time. I currently worked on the top floor of the floors we owned, but I had worked on the lowest floor and also the floor above the snack company. I had never worked on the floor that was 2 floors above the snack company and 1 floor below my current floor. The snack company often had sample bowls set up for new products they were testing. I liked to go down there when I thought I could get away for a bit. The older bald man was sitting in a red leather chair near the elevator. He turned and smiled up at me as I pressed the down button. "How is the roof?" I said. "Did you find what you were looking for?" "Oh, I couldn't get all the way to the top. I got pretty close though. It was real nice, even not quite at the top. You could see the park and everything." He was nodding his head agreeably. "Do you have business on this floor?" "Those red chairs are for people who have business on this floor." We had 4 red leather chairs around a coffee table in the hallway. There was also a tall, thin plant that I was pretty sure was plastic. The man looked up at me with a cautious smile. I looked at him in his ugly, unbuttoned suit. The top of his head shined under the fluorescent light. I must have shown my disgust on my face. "Okay," he said with an exaggerated frown. "I get it. You've got work to do. Maybe some other time." I didn't live in the city proper. I lived in one of the outer boroughs. You couldn't see it from my office window on account of all the tall buildings. The buildings were much shorter in my borough. I spent a lot of time traveling over and underwater. There were a lot of bridges and tunnels connecting my borough and the city. I didn't like going through the tunnels. Sometimes the subway would stop deep underground, and I'd close my eyes and try to think of something other than the water rushing in and drowning everyone in the car. I'd taken the blue bridge on the subway to get to work. After work, I walked the brown bridge back. It was a nice day, and the bridge was crammed with people. There were lots of children throwing scraps of food over the railing and down into the water. About halfway across the bridge, I thought I saw the bald man, and I turned quickly and tried to duck. A biker was biking past me and shouted out. He started wobbling but didn't tip over. "You're going to kill everyone," the biker shouted back. A few people yelled at the biker while he was yelling at me. I stayed crouching down for a few minutes. There were millions of people in the city, but you just never knew. I thought I saw the bald man again that evening. The man I saw was shouting in my direction from up the street, but he had a fedora pulled down low on his head, and I wasn't sure. I stepped into a new cookie shop that had opened on my corner. Before that, it had been a macaroon shop, and when I first moved into the city, a cupcake shop. But it had originally been a cookie shop. Things were always coming around like that in this part of the city. I was wrong about the man on the street. He must have been shouting at a cab. The bald man I'd been ducking from was inside the cookie shop. He had a whole stack and a 2/3 empty glass of milk. "Wow," he said. He jumped out of his chair. "Now this is a coincidence. This has to mean something, right?" I thought about leaving, going to the scone shop next door, but I didn't want him to think he had that kind of power over me. He got up beside me at the counter. "Hey buddy, I got an idea. Do you like ball games?" The woman at the counter was asking me about my order. Her eyeballs rolled in their sockets. "Sure," I said. "Everybody likes ball games." "Let's go to the ball game, you and me, just 2 guys watching a ball game. What's wrong with that?" I've got an extra ticket. I didn't look back at the man, but I felt his hand pressing down on my shoulder. I could tell he was going to keep bothering me. He was like a lost, mangy dog I'd accidentally fed scraps to. Just this once, I sighed, one ball game. The man slapped his hands together and walked towards the door. Not now, I want to finish my snack. I came here to have a snack. The man had the door open and he started to close it. We'll miss the first inning, he said. He looked surprisingly annoyed, but then he cheered up. That's okay. The team never gets going till the second or third. Okay, yeah, I'll be here when you're done. He led me to a damp parking garage deep underground and unlocked the doors to a beige sedan. The man looked at me and started to say something, but he stopped himself. He faced forward and turned on the ignition. Let's just take it slow, one day at a time. We drove up the slanted cement. I only thought we could go to a nice ball game. Let's listen to some rock and roll. We were still a few floors too far underground. Then the static broke into clear guitars as we drove onto the level ground. There were bits of trash all over the floor of his car, old snack wrappers and the like. This is a pigsty. Do you live in here? How old is this car anyway? It still has a tape player. They don't even make tapes anymore. His face and head started to turn a reddish color, and his knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. I saw his chapped lips count quietly down from 10. What do you think about our bullpen? He said after a minute. He tried to smile. Let's talk about the bullpen. The ballpark was in yet another borough. The road was flat all the way there. It was a brand new ballpark that had cost the team and the city a lot of money. It was nice and open, the breeze would come in and out, and there were all different types of food and snacks being sold, even sushi. It had all the modern amenities. There were always lots of families and old friends walking around. I went to this ballpark pretty frequently with clients for my company. I never knew where the seats my company bought us would be. Sometimes the clients and I were way at the top overhanging the field. Other times we were down low, almost level with the players. When the man and I pulled up, there were no other cars in the parking lot. There was no one walking up and down the stadium. It was just quiet and the man and me in a dirty old car. He turned off the gas and hung his bare head. The game must be tomorrow, he said after a bit. I gave a laugh. I reached out and placed a hand calmly on his damp, bald head. Isn't this just perfect, you dumb schmuck? Harass me all day and take me to an abandoned ballpark? He got out of the car and then I got out after him. The man tore his suit jacket off and rolled it into a ball. He pressed this against his mouth to yell into. Gray pigeons walked around us, knocking their heads down at fossilized pizza crusts. It was quiet and peaceful. I got up behind him and grabbed his shoulder. He dropped the jacket on the pavement. Hey, I said. We were getting somewhere now. Thank you.